Story 1. My wife and I used to live in Hawaii, where we owned a house on the Big Island. One day, I received a call from a friend named Lana, who had previously lived on the island of Oahu, but had since moved to San Diego. She explained that she was now working as a traveling nurse and had to make a decision quickly about whether to take a job on the Big Island or on the East Coast. She told me she had only 30 minutes to decide, and the job would last for 3 months. She wanted to know if she could stay with us during that time and pay rent. I asked my wife, and she said, "Fine, it will be good to see Lana again." I called Lana back and told her it would be fine for her to stay with us for those 3 months. Then she added, "Oh, by the way, my boyfriend will be coming with me too. Also, I'll need a car because I can't afford to rent one. I have a $500 per month car payment back in California." That was unexpected since we had originally agreed only to her staying with us, not her and her boyfriend. She also asked if we drank coffee. We said we did, so she mentioned that she usually made a 12-cup pot every day. After she arrived, she went through all our coffee in about a week, and at the time, Kona coffee was $1.18 per pound. When Lana and her boyfriend arrived, he seemed nice and appreciative. But another complication arose because she would be working 12-hour shifts. Her boyfriend would have to drive her to work and pick her up afterward, meaning 2 trips every day. I calculated that it was 60 miles one way from our home to the hospital where she worked, which meant 120 miles for a round trip. With 2 trips each day, that would be 240 miles daily, or at least 960 miles each week on our car. Then, she mentioned that her boyfriend liked to go fishing while she was at work, and he planned to stay in town during the day. But she also asked if we knew where they could get marijuana because her boyfriend liked to smoke it while fishing. That was far too much to ask, knowing he would be driving our car around town under the influence. We started having disagreements about it. After about a week, she found another place to rent closer to her workplace. I told her that providing a free car for them to drive was simply too much. She finally agreed to rent her own car and then cut off contact with us. We called to ask when she would return our car, and she complained that the Honda Accord we had loaned her did not have working air conditioning. Eventually, she returned the car, but never told us exactly when, just sent a final text saying, "It's in your driveway." She never paid us a penny for her first week staying in our home. Talk about entitled friends. Update: on their second day staying with us, she asked, "What is the nudity policy in your home?" She wanted to walk around unclothed. Nobody had ever asked me that question before, so I didn't have a ready answer. Update 2. Before this situation, she had been a generous friend who always invited us to stay at her home when we visited Oahu. She went out of her way to make special meals for us and seemed like a normal, reasonable person. We lost touch for a few years, and then she called unexpectedly, wanting to reconnect. We had no idea she would make such over-the-top demands after we had already agreed to let her stay with us. We were truly stunned by her new expectations, but we tried our best to accommodate her. Living with her, however, was a completely different story. We did our best for the sake of the friendship, but it became far too much once she was actually living with us. Story 2. My boyfriend and I recently got engaged in May, and when we were announcing it to our families and friends, my fiancé informed me that his twin brother told him he had to purchase a ring for his girlfriend so she would quiet down. This resulted in his brother proposing just 3 days after we did. My fiancé's brother's girlfriend has always been in a competitive headspace when it came to my fiancé and me. For the last 7 years or so, it seemed like anything we did, they had to do the same thing and try to make it appear better. Long story short, she and I have about a 10-year age gap. The most we truly have in common is that we are both with twin brothers, and we both have daughters who are only 7 months apart in age. She became pregnant after finding out I was expecting and literally asked me, "Wouldn't it be fun if we were pregnant together?" right after learning my news. The relationship between us has always been somewhat vague. I have always been polite, but she has consistently had more of a cater-to-me kind of personality. However, My relationship with the other twin definitely influenced her in various ways. Fast forward to August, they are getting married next week, and practically everyone received a hand-delivered invitation except for my fiancé and me. The funny thing is, the twins both work together, and not once did his brother mention this very near event. It turns out my fiancé's brother and his future wife tried to plan this entire wedding in secret. His brother's girlfriend went so far as to tell those invited not to say anything to us about them getting married. That plan quickly backfired because the twins' mother, along with other family members and their childhood friends, told us almost immediately. When we received the news, our initial reaction was more along the lines of, "Wow, that is fast." But I was far more focused on why my fiancé wasn't invited, especially considering the close bond they have as twins. Still, being the person that I am, I decided to send them an edible arrangement as a congratulatory gift, along with a card that expressed we were happy for them. After the gift was received, my fiancé's brother immediately sent him a message stating that they didn't like the gift and also didn't like the card. My fiancé strongly believes it was actually his brother's girlfriend who sent that message rather than his brother himself, because who would genuinely be upset over chocolate-covered strawberries and cookies? I think she was hoping we would be upset about not being invited, but instead, we are simply wishing them well. It seems like she can't stand the fact that we're not letting it bother us. Story 3. This interaction actually made me cry. I am a veterinarian, and for the last year have been overworked and overwhelmed. Since the start of COVID, veterinarians across the U.S. have been absolutely inundated with larger caseloads. Emergency rooms have been closing periodically because they have no more physical space for animals. This, coupled with financial hardships of clients who have lost their jobs or income, has been extremely overwhelming emotionally. I saw a cat a few months ago whose teeth had been neglected for years. He was morbidly obese. We discussed a diet plan and need for dentistry. The night before the procedure, the owner called me to tell me he had been coughing daily for weeks. I told her we really shouldn't proceed with anesthesia until we investigate this. She declined bringing him in for a recheck and x-rays. She expressed financial concerns, so I tried to work with her by sending home antibiotics to see if it helped. It didn't, so I told her we needed x-rays and a recheck exam so I could listen to the pet. She tried to argue that she didn't need the exam. I said, "Yes, I need to listen to his lungs and heart." I discounted the cost of the exam by $46. The x-rays were difficult to interpret due to his obesity, so I recommended additional testing, which was declined. She expressed frustration at how much money she had spent, so I told her that I would personally pay a board-certified radiologist to look at the x-rays to see if they could see anything I, a general practitioner, may have missed. I swiped my credit card and personally paid $62 for this. I never personally pay for other people's pets because I can't really afford it and it sets a bad precedent. But I was so emotionally burnt out and thought I would do something kind for someone during the pandemic. The amount of money I paid out of pocket was actually more than I made off the appointment, so I lost money. We gave her a new calorie goal for weight loss, as well as a list of low-calorie foods, and told her I would call her back once the radiologist report came back. I then got a scathing email minutes later about how she has spent so much money, doesn't have any answers yet. We haven't taken care of the teeth, and her cat hasn't lost any weight. She said I lacked focus, and what I told her could have been found by a simple internet search, so why did my client have to spend so much money? I emailed her back letting her know we had discounted her bill by $108 today. I had personally paid $62 out of my own pocket to pay the bill, and I'd be happy to further discuss the weight loss plan with her when I followed it up with the radiologist review of x-rays. I tried to tell her the purpose of the visit was the cough, and given the discounted exam, we didn't have time to discuss diet in more detail, although we did give her a new calorie goal and list of low-cal foods, but I would be happy to discuss everything further over the phone after the in-person visit. At no point during her visit did she indicate she had more questions or wanted to discuss the diet in more detail. She told me she was disappointed and would never return. She never once thanked us or acknowledged the discount. I'm just tired. This cat's health had been neglected for years, but it's my fault because I can't come up with an immediate fix. I work through my lunch break, stay late, and come in on my days off. It's never enough. I feel sorry for the next vet as I have made it worse for them. I should never have discounted anything, as now I have further cultivated a sense of entitlement. It was foolish of me to offer discounted services in the first place, but I was in an emotionally vulnerable state at the time. I completely realize I was an idiot for discounting services as it sets up expectations for further discounts and devalues our services. But I don't think I deserve to be treated the way she treated me after. Story 4. I adopted my first cat from a vet clinic. The poor thing had been abandoned there after complications from giving birth at a kitten mill. Her previous owners couldn't afford the emergency surgery she needed and just walked away when they found out she couldn't breed anymore. The vet was looking for someone to take her, and I fell in love with those brilliant blue eyes. That's how I became a cat mom to my beautiful British Shorthair. We live in a quiet neighborhood with a large fenced garden where my 2 cats can roam safely. I was sitting outside this afternoon, enjoying the warm sunshine and watching my cats explore the yard, when I heard a small voice shout from the street. A little voice excitedly yelled about seeing a kitty. I looked over and saw my neighbor's adorable 2-year-old daughter in her stroller, pointing excitedly at my cat through the garden gate. With her was a woman I didn't recognize, middle-aged with perfectly styled hair. I got up and walked over to greet them. The toddler is such a sweetheart, always waving when she sees me in the yard. I said hello to the little girl and asked how she was doing today. The woman with her cut in without any introduction. She commented on what a beautiful cat it was and asked about those blue eyes, then demanded to know if this was my cat. I told her that yes, that was my girl, and mentioned that she loves watching people walk by. The woman then rudely said that my cat was way too fat. She asked what I was feeding it, and said that I obviously couldn't take proper care of it. I was taken aback by her rudeness. I told her that my cat had a clean bill of health from her vet, got regular checkups, all her vaccinations, and ate the food her vet recommended. She said that the cat was way too fat for a Siamese and pointed out what she called fat hanging from its belly. Then she offered to take the cat off my hands, telling me to just bring the cat and all its paperwork over to the toddler's parents' house. She gestured to the toddler as if this was the most reasonable request in the world. I corrected her, explaining that my cat was not a Siamese but a British Shorthair. I made it clear that she was not taking my cat anywhere. I also told her I needed to have a conversation with the little one's mom about what just happened. That's when things got crazy. Karen started pushing against my garden gate while still holding on to the stroller handle. The gate rattled loudly, and the sudden noise and movement scared both my cat and the poor toddler, who started crying. My cat bolted for the house through her cat flap, and I rushed forward. I asked if she was insane and pointed out that she could have hurt that child. I told her to leave my property right now, or I would call the police for trespassing. She threatened to call the police herself, claiming this was animal abuse and that I had just tried to assault an innocent child. She said they would arrest me and she would take the cat. Then she revealed her real motivation by asking if I had any idea how many beautiful kittens she could breed with a cat like that. I pulled out my phone and pretended to dial emergency services. Her eyes went wide, and she quickly pushed the stroller away from my gate, shouting over her shoulder about how I hadn't seen the last of her. But I didn't call the police. Instead, I called my neighbor, the toddler's mom. When she answered, I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. I told her it was her neighbor from down the street, and that I had just had a concerning encounter with someone who was watching her daughter. She asked what happened and if her daughter was okay. I explained everything that had just occurred. There was a long silence on the other end. She apologized and explained that the woman was her mother-in-law. She told me she was 8 months pregnant and her husband was out of town on business that day. Her mother-in-law had offered to take the baby for a walk, and she thought it would be helpful. She had no idea something like this would happen. I told her that the little one was fine, just got scared when things got loud, but I thought she should know what had happened. She thanked me for calling and said this was unacceptable behavior. She promised that her mother-in-law would never be watching her daughter unsupervised again. About an hour later, my neighbor came over in person with her husband, who had apparently cut his business trip short after hearing what happened. They apologized and explained that Karen had been asked to leave their house and would not be returning to babysit. The next morning, I found a plate of homemade cookies on my doorstep with a note from the toddler's parents, apologizing again for the incident. A few days later, another neighbor stopped by to chat. Karen had tried to complain to several people on our street about my supposed animal abuse, but nobody took her seriously. Most people laughed when they heard she thought my healthy, well-cared-for British Shorthair was an abused Siamese cat. The supposed fat Karen was so concerned about is actually called a primordial pouch, a normal flap of skin that hangs from cats' bellies to protect their organs and help with flexibility. Every healthy cat has one. If Karen had done even 5 minutes of research about cats before trying to steal mine, she would have known this. My cat has forgotten the incident and continues to lounge in the garden, watching the world go by through the gate. She's living her best life, unaware that someone once tried to catnap her for her supposed breeding potential. I never saw Karen again after that day. According to my neighbor, she was banned not just from babysitting duties, but from visiting their house altogether. The family decided they were better off without that kind of drama in their lives, especially with a new baby on the way. Sometimes I wonder if Karen ever learned the difference between a Siamese and a British Shorthair, or if she's still out there somewhere trying to rescue supposedly fat cats from their loving homes. Story 5. In the dot-com boom, I worked for a consultancy that took jobs to build websites. One of our clients wanted to buy a web content management system and talk to us. Consulting on purchases wasn't our usual line of work, but they thought it would be interesting, and I was assigned to the job as the technical person who would look at the options, make a decision, and write up a recommendation. I was pretty expensive at $300 an hour, which was a lot at the time. I had looked at all the commercial options, there were only about 8 at the time, and the client's needs, and determined in only about an hour that only one software package would meet their needs. But the client really wanted me to come to their office and let them call in all the vendors and conduct vendor meetings and show the staff what the relative merits were and convince them that my choice was the right choice. I had a phone call to discuss it with the boss at the client, told him he could get off very cheap because I could already write up the recommendation and be done. But he wanted me to come in person to do it anyway because he could be spending $1 million on the product, and a few tens of grand of my time was a drop in the bucket to get the staff to want to use it, and assured me that my decision would stand, and he would do what I recommended, but he still wanted me to come conduct the meetings to try to get staff buy-in. So his staff called all the vendors and scheduled vendor meetings, and I showed up to conduct the vendor meetings as requested. One of the vendors, I think it was the second, showed up. I walked into the room with someone, who wasn't the boss, from the client, and the person from the client, thinking they were being snarky, didn't bother to introduce me as the impressive, expensive consultant. They just said, "This is X," while everyone else was introduced by their full name and company title and their relationship to the project. I didn't bother to correct them, as this suited me just fine. I could sit in the corner and watch and not have the salesperson try to play to my expectations. The sales lady tried to play to all their expectations. The product was what we like to call fully buzzword compliant. She wanted to use as many possible buzzwords to dazzle the client with technical terms, whether she even knew what those terms meant or not. It has XML buttons. It has an HTML4-based processor. Oh no, we don't JavaScript. Our research shows clients don't like that. I sat in the corner next to the door, listened, and took notes. As we approached the end of the conversation, she asked, Any questions? My clients' people all had a happy glow as the dazzle them with nonsense buzzwords thing worked on them. None of them were technical people, so I looked at my notes and started asking questions to see if she even knew what half the buzzwords meant and why they were stuck together in nonsensical ways. You said it has XML buttons. What is XML? What are XML buttons? You said it has an XML4 processor. What is HTML? How does that differ from HTML4? How can you be using HTML4 when it isn't even out yet? What is a processor? What does it mean to have an HTML4 processor? What is JavaScript? Is it a verb? You could see the gears turning in the clients' heads as they realized they had just been bamboozled, and she had no answers and wasn't used to being questioned even though she had invited it. She finally failed to hide her irritation, glared at me, and growled, "Who are you anyway? What makes you think you have the right to ask these sorts of questions?" I replied, "I'm the person who decides if your product gets purchased or not," stood up, and walked out. I returned to my hotel for the night and never saw her again. Her product was just mysteriously removed from the client's list of candidates. Dumb move on her part, because I actually liked her product, and if she had merely been polite about it, I would have probably recommended against her product for this client, but recommended it to other clients, and there were more of them who would want her product than were like this one. Story 6. After reading and listening to stories from this subreddit for over a year now, I have dreamed of the day I would encounter a Karen or an entitled parent in the wild, never expecting it to ever happen. But today was the day, and boy, what an encounter it was. So, for a little bit of background, my grandma works on a medium-sized dairy farm as kind of a manager, and I, 18 female, help her out from time to time. We have a thing called milk filling station. It's basically a vending machine where you can buy fresh milk from us, and it's €1 per liter. We're located on a hill, a little outside a small village, and surrounded by meadows and forests, so we do get some hikers or families on a nice walk from time to time, especially on the weekends, and they usually look at the calves and buy some milk. One shift here usually includes 4 people. Everyone has different jobs to fulfill, so most of the time you're alone just doing your tasks, and my job is essential for the milking process, as it includes bringing the cows to the milking station and back to their herds. And now on to the actual story. As I've mentioned, I'm alone most of the time, just doing my thing, running around inside the farm. It's a restricted area. We have signs up since it can be quite dangerous, but the gates are open to make work easier, and for ventilation so theoretically everyone could walk in. Still, I was kinda surprised when I, in the midst of literally shoveling cow poop, were met with a rather annoyed ahem behind me. I turned around, shovel still in hand, and saw a woman maybe in her mid-30s standing before me, way too overdressed to be seen anywhere near a farm. She also didn't look like she was on a casual walk with her family. At least I wouldn't do one in the high heels she was wearing. She was looking at me rather angrily, and I immediately knew that this probably was the day I'd been waiting for, although I never expected it to be here of all places. Before I could even so much as open my mouth, she already started speaking in a very condescending tone to me. "Finally, I've been looking for someone to help me for ages. Why are none of you doing your job and being there when you're needed?" I was instantly annoyed with this woman, because how dare she come in here and talk to me like that? And also, what job was she referring to? Because I for one was doing mine right at this moment, and it was strictly timed. I had to get stuff done with zero time to listen to this lady. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and be nice. "Sorry, if you are referring to the office in the front, there usually is no one since we're all in here doing our job. What's the problem? Maybe I can help." I thought that maybe she's had a flat tire or something around here and needed help, because I legitimately had no idea what someone dressed like her could want on a dairy farm. She just scoffed at me. "Huh, unbelievable. You should be over there in case someone needs your help like I do. Anyways, your milk is too expensive." Me, "I'm sorry, what?" I said, "Your milk is too expensive. I want a better price." She was saying every word slowly and loudly as if she thought I was disabled. "Oh, are you talking about the vending machine? I'm sorry, but that's a fixed price. I can't change that. And in my opinion..." She cut me off. "I didn't ask for your opinion. It's way cheaper at the supermarket. But my daughter wanted to try fresh milk, so we drove here. You should match the price at the supermarkets, or you won't sell much." "Ma'am, we're not a supermarket. We're selling the leftover fresh milk so it doesn't go to waste." She cut me off again. "What? That's leftover milk? And to imagine my daughter would have drank that." Now for clarification, when I said leftover milk, I meant that it was fresh milk, as in barely out of the cow fresh, that we weren't able to sell to the company which collects our milk because they have fixed numbers, and if we produce more milk than those numbers, we would have to throw it away. But with the vending machine, at least some of it still gets sold. If you want fresher milk than that, you would have to milk the cow yourself right into the bottle. I started to try and explain this to the entitled mother, but she immediately cut me off again. No, this is unacceptable. Neither me nor my child will drink old milk." And then the dreaded sentence came, "I want to speak to your manager." I already had enough of this nonsense, and as I've already said, a strictly timed job that I had to get back to, because we were in the middle of milking our cows, and this lady was literally holding up the whole process by holding me up. So I was more than happy to agree and get her to my manager, my grandma, and have her out of my hair. I just motioned for her to follow me and speed walked in the direction of the front office, while the lady was trying to keep up in her high heels without breaking her ankles. Now, our office is in kind of another building, and the door closest to us was locked. So we had to walk around the building, across the parking lot for the workers, and through another entrance that happened to be right besides the boxes we kept the newborn calves in. This also was the place where I met the before-mentioned daughter of the entitled mother. The girl was maybe 10 years old and happily watching the calves and petting them when we came into view. As soon as she saw her mom, she ran to her and started excitedly jumping up and down. "Little girl, Mom, look at the cute calves." She dragged her mom over to the boxes. "Look, it's so cute. I named her Emma. Can we keep her? Please." I expected the entitled mother to maybe say something along the lines of "a cow is not a pet," or "we don't have the space," or maybe "I don't know how to take care of a cow," but boy, was I wrong. Instead, the mom turns to me and asks completely serious, "How much are these?" Now, although we do sell our male calves since they are of no use to us, I for one wasn't sure how much exactly this calf was worth. Pretty sure that there was a registration process involved in owning a cow, and in no way, shape, or form authorized to just sell a calf like that. And on top of that, cows aren't exactly animals you can just put in your yard and be done with. I'm sorry, but I was cut off again. "No, I asked how much it is. Tell me." "Ma'am, that's a cow, not a pet." "I know, but your milk is way too expensive anyways. Just sell me one of those if my daughter wants it, and we will have our own, really fresh milk." At this point, I strongly considered just walking away, because there was no way this woman could be serious. She really wanted to buy an animal that would grow up to be around 1.40 meters high and 700 kilograms heavy, strong enough to kill you if you handled them wrong. Not only that, but also a cow of a breed that needs to be milked twice a day because it produces as much milk as possible, which is around 30-50 liters at our farm. All that because €1 per liter for fresh milk apparently was too much, and her daughter thought our calves were cute. They are, but that's not the point. Plus, you need to properly take care of them, feed them right, and just getting a calf won't give you instant milk. She has to grow up, get pregnant, give birth, etc. All around this, the entitled mother would have to wait for another 24 to 28 months until her calf starts giving milk, and then repeat the process every year, so she would have new calves to take care of every year just to keep her one cow running, so to speak. Instead of telling her directly how stupid, time and money consuming this idea is, I decided to try and take the diplomatic way. "Ma'am, I understand, but it's not that easy. I'm afraid I'm not able." She interrupts me, yet again. Then get me something who's able. I wanted to speak to your manager anyways. Why do you have to be such an incompetent worker? How old are you? 15. Children shouldn't talk back to adults. That's where I've had it, and so I just blurted out the best thing I could think of at the time. Me. I am an adult, and you should stop talking to me like that. I am not obligated to help you, and in fact we could sue you for trespassing on private property. How dare you threaten me? Young lady, that is no way to talk to a person older than you. Learn some respect. I demand to speak to your manager. I will get you fired for this. As if she was called, my grandma stepped out of the building right at that moment, probably because she heard the commotion. Grandma, what's going on here? Oh good, are you the manager of this place? At the moment, yes. How can I help you? This worker of yours was incredibly rude. She threatened me and my daughter and refused to help us. She even tried to assault me right before you came outside. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been on time. She was trying to squeeze some fake tears out at this point, quickly swiping them away with her finger before they could ruin her very thick layer of makeup. All we wanted was to ask if we could get the milk you are selling a little cheaper, and my daughter here really likes this calf over there, so we thought about buying it. My grandma was just silently listening to this woman's story, arms crossed and eyebrows raised because she could detect nonsense and lies from 3 miles away. Grandma, ma'am, this is my granddaughter you're talking about, and I know for a fact that she wouldn't do any of that. The entitled mother went awfully quiet at that. So, about the milk. I maybe would have helped you out if you hadn't just lied to my face, but now I kindly ask you to just pay the full price as everyone else does. And the calf, I'm afraid I won't be able to sell it to you. This is outrageous. I'm a paying customer. I would pay for this calf. Why are you refusing? My daughter wants a cow, and she likes this one there. Little girl, her name is Emma. Grandma, ma'am, that won't give you a cow, it will give you a bull. It's a male calf. You're lying. You just don't want to sell it because it's pretty. My grandma just silently pointed to the big male symbol on the side of the box, clearly labeling it as a boy. At this point, the entitled mother just huffed and mumbled something about stupid, uneducated people from the countryside and how she would never come back here ever again, which I would also really appreciate. The little girl was whining loudly about her Emma while her mom was dragging her back to their expensive-looking car, and my grandma and I watched them drive away before having a good laugh about the whole story.